Okay, welcome, Management partners, interested parties, people who are coming along to find out more about what's happening with the Microsoft updates. I feel very privileged today because I'm also able to introduce and have join us a colleague, a friend who I've known for a number of years, and we were just chatting off camera a couple of minutes ago, saying pretty sure we met originally in 2010 when I came into Microsoft, and I spoke to our channel colleagues, Moheb Moses and Cam Whalen. At the time, I said, who do I speak to at Microsoft? Who can actually make sense of the Microsoft world for me? And they said, there's only one man in Microsoft that you need to speak to, and that's Phil Meyer. So I went in at the time and met with Phil. He was very kind, and we talked lots about SPLA, and I think we had a few words about BPOS coming after that, not long after. And in 2015, we embarked on the CSP adventure together. So today, Phil, after 34 and a half years, Phil, was it at Microsoft?
That is right. That's why I got the little 34 and a half down the bottom, or 3345. No, it's not a misprint. It's not supposed to be 365. It's actually 345, which is representative of 34 and a half years at Microsoft. And I got made redundant, Andrew. You probably know that, but maybe the listeners don't, back in August last year. So that was a real catalyst for change.
Look, I think it's a truly an exciting time. I think there's a great opportunity now for you to bring so much knowledge, wisdom, experience, and insight into what's happening now with the future of Microsoft and how it impacts on our partners, on our market. And I was feel very privileged to have you join us today and really go through a little bit about your take on the go-to-market strategy, the licensing, and particularly what's happening, in the AI space with Copilot, and I suppose your take on the opportunities for MSPs.
Well, you set that up beautifully, Andrew. Well done. Thank you. First, very humbling, your very kind words. And yes, even that journey that's been the last 16 years has been quite tumultuous, with SPLA kind of fading away, the era of the BPOS, the arrival of Azure in the environment, and now all the recent changes that have come from Microsoft. And very much, as you quite well put it, in the fact that AI has emerged. And I know some of the listeners that have joined us today. Chad's there, Don's there. I know some of those names. And they've certainly, across one thing I'll make reference to at the end, my online meetings, and a fairly vigorous discussion we had about Glasswings in the last call on Tuesday. For those who are not familiar with Glasswings, maybe look it up. It's all around Anthropic, and I even read this morning that a young group of children managed to access the URL to the Anthropic download, the Mythos specifically download. And unfortunately, those kids are using it for bad, not good. But in that era of AI, we do need to be conscious of security. So some of the things I'll touch on briefly are that elements of security. And to try and help small businesses with that, Microsoft's been pretty good at making some changes in terms of making it more affordable for small businesses, who are actually the primary target now. Reading another piece this morning, it's very clear that small businesses are the primary target. And I'm sorry I don't know your client base well enough, Andrew.
It's where we live and breathe. It's where we live and breathe.
Small business, yeah. Well, it's very relevant to them, as I saw that piece this morning, indicating that the shift is now very much on the small business market. But I am getting ahead of myself. Did you want anything else that you wanted to share, or do you want me to just dive straight in and get into what we created today?
Look, I think dive straight in.
Okay.
I think, would you want to run Q&A fairly dynamically? Happy to take the queries as they come.
I prefer that. What have we got online here? Nearly 20 odd people. I'm very happy with that. I saw one bot there too. Michael's got his note taker running. I'm not sure if you want this recorded, so you might want to remove Michael's note taker. Up to you. And we will make the slides available subsequent to the event too. But yeah, I feel we could probably dive straight in. But as you asked, certainly the chat. I prefer the chat, if that's okay, Andrew, Claire.
Sure.
I find the chat is a bit more fluid rather than being so formal as a Q&A session. If we're all good with that, we'll do a thumbs up from everybody.
Looks good.
All right, thumbs up came from everybody. And that's very, very good. You're obviously efficient Teams users because none of you have hit the react button, which is the hands up button, which is often what happens in this design UI of Teams. Even when the raised hand is right next to the react button, you've all managed to navigate to react and choose the thumbs up. All right, let's get into it.
Beautiful.
Look, we've got quite a bit to touch on in the next, we're down to 50 minutes now. I wanted to start with why the changes that Microsoft making. I think we've alluded to that already, some of those AI being used for bad rather than being good. Some of the new bundles, the Copilot Business Bundle, which is very much, I am going to summarize and give the bullet points now, and I will re-emphasize those as we go through the content. But that business bundle, I think, was very wise of Microsoft to do, in that it was too expensive, that $30 US enterprise version of Copilot. So bringing it down to $21 US was a smart move. Same capabilities, but at a much better price. Then I've done a little bit of graphics there about the Microsoft 365 Copilot. That's not a Microsoft thing, that's a me thing. And I've basically said, now you get GPT and you also get Anthropic Claude with Microsoft 365 Copilot. And it's really just to emphasize that Copilot is not a large language model, that it gives you choice.
I think that's a really good point, Phil, because one of the things that I find, sorry to butt in there, but we're talking to partners on a day-to-day basis. And the overall industry, a lot of people just really put Copilot in another it's just another large language model. It's like Claude, it's like ChatGPT, it's like Grok. Well, nothing's really like Grok. But I think the fact that Copilot is about accessing and using multiple large language models, it really talks about how Microsoft see it in positioning about privacy, data, and trust, rather than just trying to do another LLM. Is that how you sort of see that come together?
Absolutely. I think it's Copilot. Microsoft's been saying for a long time the UI for AI, but it really didn't translate to anything. To me, it was Copilot was the UI, the user interface to one AI, which was only OpenAI. But now it's really become that UI to not only ChatGPT and all the different versions of it, but now to Claude as well. And that's Opus and Sonnet. I don't know whether Mythos is going to see the light of day, but it's got those. And indeed, I know today's focus, Andrew, isn't about the Azure AI Foundry, but that actually brings 11,000 models. Now, I don't want to get ahead of where our listeners are today, but there is that in that professional development, that pro code world, the ability to actually access 11,000 models. So indeed, that expression about Copilot being the UI for AI, it's a UI to 11,000 AIs. Now, again, you've got to be a pro code developer to get to that. But even as a low code now, you've got access to the two big ones, the OpenAI family and the Anthropic family. And I'm told that will also expand in the coming months to other more mainstream large language models as well.
Okay.
Yes, you're right, Don. Mythos will be out there. It's already out there because they stole the source code. So people are already running it up, and it's a little out of control. And that to me is somewhat disturbing that such a thing is out of control. But it does bring into, very nicely, thanks, Don, the fourth bullet point there about the secure AI add-ons. So the idea that we can now establish a secure environment by using the Microsoft security protection and compliance technologies. And yesterday, Satya used the term trust. So wrapping all those words together under the word trust. So how do we expose those trust elements to your small businesses so they can harden up and be protected? And not necessarily from the external threat actors, but actually your internal. And it's turning out to be that the insiders are the ones that create the greatest risk. The classic person who is clicking on anything is part of that. But there's also elements now of people for accidental or malicious intent that are creating those leakages and the oversharing of data. Then we'll go into promotions. I did think it was important to touch on and remind us all of these extended service terms, which are very close to be coming into effect, and
Yes.
then potentially looking at a demo experience that is available to you. But let's get into it. I thought we'd already got into it, Phil. 84%. That's a big number. So in your client base today, and this is research that was conducted back in 2024 and reconfirmed in 2025, that Australia and New Zealand are the fastest in the uptake of AI at work. So this is specifically at work. People are bringing in ChatGPT, Claude, Gemini, Perplexity, whatever it might be, into their work environment, and they're summarizing documents, pumping their email into creating new mail, creating new documents which have got confidential in them, putting confidential price lists in, trying to augment those, get insights from that data. So very cool to see that Australia and New Zealand is so quick at this uptake and so excited about the potential of increasing efficiency and effectiveness in the office. But in there lies a danger. And to no surprise to many of people who are on the line, you'd know that when you do that, either through a human copying that document, creating a prompt with that confidential data in it, those large language models are learning from that data, they're retaining that data, and they're making that data available, not immediately, but into the next trained model that comes out. You'll find between an OpenAI GPT-4o Mini and the 4.5 coming out, you can ask 4.5 and you'd get answers which would include content you put into 4.0 Mini. If you use Sonnet, if you use Opus 4.7, you'll find answers which will include anything you put into Opus 4.6 in terms of using those free versions of Claude or the free versions of OpenAI. And the same thing happens in Gemini. And of course, in the Gemini world, it's been used for advertising purposes. And in the other models, if you're not paying for it, you're paying for it with your data. So therein lies the risk. I'm using a free tool. I'm putting confidential work information, personally identifiable information into something that's learning it and remembering it. Well, that's high risk. So what's a better model? Well, the model that Microsoft's been advocating for a number of years and is all wrapped up in the use of the Microsoft 365. Actually, it's more your Entra tenant. It's more the idea of using your tenant that is manifest through the Entra technology, which would exist with the documents that sit within inside, obviously, your Microsoft 365 experience. But moreover, if we wanted to really expand this thinking, it would also be into your Azure tenant, into anything you're doing around Dynamics as well. But the focus today is very much Microsoft 365. So think of your Word documents, spreadsheets, PowerPoint, the emails your clients are creating, the Teams conversations that they're having, stay within a bubble, that bubble on the left-hand side. And when those prompts go to the large language models, OpenAI today, Claude tomorrow, and others, it is not remembering that content. It is not training the model on that content. And that's a key differentiation point from all those other technologies out there. Okay, yes, there's Claude for work and ChatGPT for enterprise. We'll have a conversation about the subtlety differences there in a moment. So we create a bubble when we put them in the Microsoft 365 tenant. And you've also got the opportunity to create bubbles within bubbles. Sounds like champagne, doesn't it? Maybe the way we'll spend our weekend, if it's a long one. So, but bubbles within bubbles. And that is the idea that we can create a HR bubble, a sales bubble, a legal bubble, so that the data is protected within the business, so that only the right people have access to the right information at the right time to also protect that information. You know, this technology has been around from Microsoft for many, many years, but we've kind of got away with what I term security by obscurity. It's been too hard to find data in a business, too hard to navigate a SharePoint site. Now, with Copilot, without guardrails, without data loss protection, without sensitivity labeling, anybody can ask any questions. By way of example, I was at an event recently meeting with a private school. And after sharing this information, one of the IT people from the private school came up and tapped me on the shoulder and says, "You're right, Phil. You're right. We've got to put guardrails within the business, not just M365 giving us the big bubble. We had an experience where we put Copilot into our business, but we didn't do any of the security labeling. And within 3 weeks, a student asked, give me the salaries of all the teaching staff. And they were able to get that simply because the guardrails hadn't been implemented within the business to protect teaching information, HR and salary information, student information by class, and even student information to an individual level so that other students can't copy their work. These are things to consider also in a commercial workspace, in a government workspace. Given the power of AI technology, particularly the Copilot technology to find and seek and summarize, you do need to give it a little guidance on what it can find in the business too. Certainly the AI era has increased those security risks. And if you look to the left-hand side, I'd probably call out the second one as the most common one that I come across, which is that data oversharing and leaking, where organizations just don't realize that when they turn on Copilot in their business or those other technologies where people just put the document in, they're oversharing within their business and oversharing without their business, outside their business by putting it into these consumer grade AI models. So security teams are really faced with this challenge. And moreover, they're faced with this challenge because today they're using fragmented sets of tools. They've possibly got, and the number I got from a webinar earlier in the week was anything from 20 to 60 different security tools that they're running in their businesses today. Now, I'm sure you're probably not advocating that as smart partners. You've probably brought that down to a smaller list of 5 or 6. But some of those other partners that are trying, customers that are doing it themselves, they're in that kind of order of magnitude, 15, 20, 60. When I heard from Coca-Cola recently, they were using 80 different tools, 80 different products for security in their business. It was just too hard. So they made a decision, Microsoft first, and then top that up where there's some gaps. I heard the same thing about Commonwealth Bank. I've heard the same thing at Central Coast Council, where they basically consolidated. A lot of that was driven about creating a more secure environment, but a lot of also that was driven by cost. By having all those fragmented security tools, by having a plethora, a kind of zoo of different security technologies, it was just too expensive to run. But many small businesses, medium-sized businesses, and particularly enterprise businesses, are still in that situation where they've got too many security tools and they've got the risks of over data sharing issues. So I put this cartoon together a couple of years ago now, but I thought it was worth sharing because it's so true. I still find this today when I show all the value in Copilot with its large language models to summarize, to create content, to help with teams, etc., and then have this conversation about security and compliance. There is just crickets in the room, silence. People are reluctant to do it. Look, there are adoption cycles, and I'm sure Andrew and the team from Managed Protect can help you with some of those cycles and maybe education later on adoption methodologies, everything from very brute force methods such as that used by Microsoft in the early days of Copilot, where every document was automatically made confidential so that it was sensitivity labeled straight away to stay in the business, to more of a gradual rollout that I've seen in modern implementations, which is this kind of granular, measured approach in terms of the release of the Copilot technology to the users, as well as the introduction of security and compliance and governance and guardrails around those groups of users. So a more gradual phased rollout of the technology. But in the main, there is concerns, or there's not a lot of excitement in the bottom box. There's a lot of excitement in the top box. I thought by way of example, I had this short video. And the reason I like this video, it's not only done by Jeremy from Microsoft Mechanics. He's a really smart guy. And that's a good reason in itself because he's a really smart guy that you should get to know on YouTube. His name's Jeremy Chapman. But also because it highlights that internal security requirement. So let's roll the video and maybe have a chat about it once it's played. So I really like that little video, and it's available up on the web. I can share the link. It's part of the content. I think what hits me most of all about that is, honors the permissions on the file. So Copilot was not able to access the file because Violet had said, this file is my file only. And poor old Mario couldn't even find the file. Doing a search using Copilot, because Mario was not having permissions to that agreements file, could not see it at all. And secondly, I really like the aspect of where when Violet did use a summary capability inside Copilot to summarize that confidential document, automatically the controls in and around that sensitivity, the information in the document was applied so it became a protected document. Now, we could go into many, many hours of discussion around security capabilities, but one thing I would touch on very briefly is once that security control is applied, even if you put it on a USB stick, even if you send it by email, it is unreadable by anybody else. It is a protected file. The only person who can open that file is, in that case, Violet, because of the protection that has been applied. So if you take it offline, inaccessible. If you try and screen grab it, if she was sharing it and via Teams, and somebody tried to screen snip it, using the print screen type function, it would come through as a black blob. So there's a lot of other subtle elements that come through this security technology that is available from Microsoft. And I really liked how Satya Nadella yesterday at the ICC, at the AI tour, used this little statement: intelligence times trust. So it's not only the AI capabilities that Andrew and I have talked about, which is that multi-model capabilities that Microsoft brings, it's that whole underpinning of trust, security, privacy, protection, governance, adherence to regulatory requirements that comes in the Microsoft representation of AI, which the other people just don't do. But let's have a look at some of the bundles. So there's some very good offers at the moment from Microsoft. They came around December 1st last year, which are these bundles with percent discounts for that under 300 category. And these bundles are active until June 30. So we kind of got 3 more months of shopping left in which to offer these bundles to our clients. And the good thing about getting them onto these offers now is that if you get them onto the annual subscription, there's some price changes coming. So you can guard them against, you can protect against those price changes that are becoming into effect July 1, which we'll talk about in a moment too. So these discounts, these offers, are great opportunities for you to take to your clients now to say, hey, they're at a better price, but also let's protect you against those price uplifts that are coming from Microsoft in the fairly near term, in the next few months. So first of all, Copilot Business on its own at 15% off. So that gives you some capabilities I'll highlight in a moment that are different to a Copilot chat. There's no promo at the moment on Basic. I very much feel that Microsoft wants customers to be using Standard or Business Premium. And probably of the two, there's a strong desire from Microsoft at least for you to be recommending Business Premium to clients, particularly in and around the security capabilities that it brings, those governance, that trust element. Premium definitely brings a lot of trust capabilities to it within the Premium box as it is, or with this other offer they've got in market that became effective in December, again running out in June, is the Purview Suite. Now, you heard Jeremy mention Purview in the presentation. That is fundamentally the suite of technologies that brings in that trust element. The governance, the compliance, the guardrails, the sensitivity labeling, the data loss prevention, the posture management, and some of the things I'm going to bring up in a slide a moment that shows you the completeness, it's incredible completeness of the suite to bring in that trust, particularly as it relates to the era of AI and that need to give your clients that assuredness that when they're working with confidential information, private information within their business, they can protect against either insider risk or external risk in that information being overshared from their business. Now, a moment ago, I did mention some price increases. We don't have exact prices. As much as we work with our friends at Manage Protect, They don't have access, nor does Microsoft publish specific guaranteed prices. What they've got here is indicative prices based on the increase in percentage across basic, standard, premium, the O suites, and the E suites. You can see the percentage they're indicating on the right column, and therefore the likely US dollar price that we'd see on the 1st of July. So the question might be, well, when are we going to get exact pricing for this, Andrew? Claire, when are we going to get it? Not till June 1. Microsoft only publishes final prices, official prices, 30 days prior to those price uplifts. So we are looking at anything from 5 to 33% increases in price. Coming up, there are a few zeros, and I like the one, particularly the business premium, which has that 0% increase in price. And I think that speaks volumes to the fact that they really want end customers, particularly in the era of AI, to be using business premium. That is the strongly recommended technology, and probably why they're not doing any price increase on business premium on July 1. Any questions on that? I know that Managed Protect is particularly passionate about you wanting to know about this price uplift, to understand that the June 1 date coming with the official pricing is coming, but they can't give you the exactness that you might be seeking today, and your clients might be seeking today. But in the chat window, anything? Andrew, anything I've missed on that you want to amplify?
No, I suppose I'll just actually sort of more summarising some of it. So basically, yeah, most of our partners know that their customers are using shadow AI. That's a known. We're seeing, as you said, 84% are using that. We see that Copilot's moving into a place of delivering a very much trust and intelligence through a single UI to the best available AI technology, large language models available. Then it's a case of, okay, where do we take our customers? Because we know that we fundamentally want to keep them in a safe space. We want to keep them in an environment that's secure. Is that more of a business premium environment, or is that a enterprise purview environment then?
Well, it's really the two together. And I've got a slide that comes up and it talks about maturity levels. So business premium really gives you maturity level 1, which is a detect. I don't know if our listeners today understand SIST models and NIST models, but they talk about these maturity levels. So kind of the baseline detect model is what you get with business premium. But this new add-on suite is more a respond. So it's not only detected, but it then takes proactive action, automated processes to remediate any issues that have arisen within that tenant, with a particular user's set of files, with the communications that occurred with inside the business. So it's really
a good, better, best sort of situation.
Yeah. And good is business, good. I don't know that I'd even classify standard as being good. It's just there. Good would be business premium. Better would be the purview suite for business premium. Best would be consultation with the client to find the right configuration of the resources for their client. So I couldn't put standard even in the good category. It would have to be some level of business premium to get to good, better being the purview add-on, and best that consultation. And in that, Andrew, I think there's a revenue opportunity for a partner.
Yes.
There's a real opportunity for them to go and do consultancy services, advisory services, and even set up an annuity stream, a subscription stream, in terms of doing the secure score and checking the health and educating new users as they come in. But that's another topic we can touch on, is those service opportunities, that profitability that can arise by not just selling the license, but counselling and them. I have a regular debate with people at Microsoft about Microsoft security technology is so great. It's like buying, I don't know what your preference in motor car is, but pick anything, a BMW or Mercedes-Benz, whatever these days. They've got really good security technology and it's on, right? It's already turned on. You expect the airbags to be working, you expect the collision detection, the lane assist, right? But with Microsoft, it's all off. So, okay, I bought this car, but now I've got to go run through a bunch of switches to activate airbags, to activate collision detection. Microsoft, it is like that. So, and that creates that opportunity for a partner to go in there and consult to find out what switches to turn on when and for who. And that's the kind of thing I get back from Microsoft people is, well, we do that on purpose because that's the opportunity for the partner to make additional services revenue rather than just selling them a box and it works like a motor car.
Well, I will use the opportunity to mention a recently launched Octiga product, which is designed to manage Microsoft security and posture across all of the tenants, purely for that reason. So thank you for that segue.
And good
Anyway,
pickup.
I'll let you keep going because otherwise we will run out of time. I know what we're like.
We do, yes. So look, why sell these bundles? Look, it's a great way to maximize earnings. So Microsoft offers these incentives. So when you sell, let's just take that orange pillar, that M365 Copilot business, okay? You get this 3.75% margin incentive from Microsoft. And because they can accelerate that to be a strategic product, you get another 7. And because you're doing it under CSP, you get another one, you get a 7.5. So you're getting 18.25 potential incentive for just putting that Copilot business down. So that's fantastic. You've got that incentive. And you can see the various different incentives that you get for those other bundles. So it's a great way to just increase the amount of money you're making in your business from those incentives that Microsoft has and makes available to you. Plus, you can get these, you do need those minimum points. The other great thing that Microsoft introduced, and I think they have been listening, there was a lot of angst, let's call it that, frustration. I don't know that it goes to the point of anger, but there were some people who would have liked to have had a month-by-month model in the introduction of the Copilot technology. The good feedback from the partner base, from the customer base, and good news is now, launched on March 1st of this year, so very recently, is that month-by-month billing option for the Copilots and the Copilot bundles. So the issue with that is, of course, there's a 20% uplift on it, but then you counter that with some of the discounts that are going on, the promotions, it brings it back to something a bit more manageable. So launched on March 1st, you can see there's these month-by-month models for Copilot Business, the bundle with Basic, the bundle with Standard, and the bundle with Business Premium. And I believe they are in Australian dollars. Is that right? No, they're all US dollars. Apologies, they are US dollars. So no, they're US dollars. So you'll have to work with Andrew and Claire and the team to appreciate what those price points will be in Australia. So my apologies, I haven't translated that to Australian dollars. Any other questions? Yes, Fiona's confirmed they are US dollars. Any other questions on those promos or the month by month? We've got 20 of you online and you're being very quiet, very respectful. Come on. Be a rebel. Ask a question. I know Andrew put in a comment, and I think Fiona's made some replies. Chad has asked a question, and it looks like Claire has gone back on that. Very good.
Yeah, look, I think the monthly, the majority of our customer base do still purchase on monthly basis. Monthly commit, monthly pay. So it's definitely the most convenient option, and it is really great to see it available now. Allows people to dip their toe in. And I think more and more we're also seeing though partners looking at annual commit monthly payments just to really I suppose make the numbers work, but then of course there is that complexity in that risk that you then manage with your customers. So it often can be a different combination with different customers.
So putting you on the spot, do you have any of the community that do a little bit of annual, and a little bit of monthly?
Yeah, definitely.
Okay.
I think it. We spend a lot of time trying to, I suppose, articulate to our partners that, hey, there are these options. There's all these options, but it ultimately comes down to, in many cases, our partners, holding the bag on if anything does go wrong, they're up for the commitment, which is it's the reality of the situation. And I think, with a lot of these partners, they will have their customers locked into, very long-term agreements or agreements where the Microsoft component may actually be a very small part of the overall engagement, in which case the risk level is lower. But it is something that we've had to very much manage with our partners and help them manage with their customers on a case-by-case basis. It'd be easier if
Okay.
everything was just month to month and monthly commitment and really well priced.
But you got 20% uplift, haven't you? Yeah.
Just a
Yeah.
thought. But it's about value. We
Yeah.
recognize that.
All right. Well, let's get into extended service terms. I think most people on the line probably are familiar with EST. Thumbs up if you've heard of EST before, extended service, not Eastern Standard Time, but
it's still coming as a surprise to some partners. Even over the last few days, we've been getting tickets of surprise, and I've noticed on some of the Facebook conversations, it's people are going, "Oh, what's going on here? What's changing?" So I think it's good that we touch on this.
So, for those subscriptions that are ending on or after, and that is an American format date, so it's May 4th, which happens to be Star Wars Day. May the 4th be with you. And I think sometimes Microsoft does that for a bit of cheek and fun, make it May 4th. So on or after Star Wars Day, you are looking at extended terms. If for the behavior of the result of the subscription ending, so the day after expiration, if they renew, it renews, great. But if they don't renew, they then move to what's called EST, which is that uplift in price, a monthly price, and an uplift on top of that monthly price until they cancel it in time or decide to move towards renewal, or they cancel and the subscription moves to disabled state by default, so that their resources are no longer available, which is quite a different experience. If you go right to the bottom of the slide, you see in the old days it was, yes, renew is without change, that's consistent. But we had that grace period of a number of days where administrators were still able to access resources in that disabled state. Now, if they want to access those resources, they're in extended service term. There's a payment for those users on a monthly basis with a 3% uplift in that. So you can see the dates. On or after May the 4th, with the subscription start date a year ago or before a year ago, you can see that subtle nuance there. And then before the 4th of May, then obviously before, what are we talking about? Gosh, a week, 10 days that we've got active before that May the 4th comes up. So if their subscription ends before then and renews, then they have that grace period or they have that renewal option. So please do consider that. I have put a link in the bottom there that gives you much more detail. If you'd like to use that and then use our friend Copilot in the browser, it can nicely summarize that and you can ask questions of it using your Copilot in your Edge browser. I don't know if any of you saw the Firefox issue that came out the other day, 160 flaws. Our friend Mythos found 160 flaws in Firefox. So Firefox team the Mozilla team is madly patching Firefox at the moment. Mark had a question. It looks like Fiona's on that one as well. Look, moving along with 20 minutes left, I did want to make sure that you are aware of some of the, with these price increases, maybe something to arm you for the conversation with your clients is to reflect on all the things that Microsoft has delivered without a price increase since 2022. So that's kind of my summary of some of those elements that have come out and some of the newer ones that have come in 2026. So take your time, have a read across those. The orange ones are in the productivity space, the blue in the compliance, and the dark grey are kind of the AI agent type add-ons as well. This is a conversation I thought was worth having. I know from having this conversation with many other partners, it has been valuable. The value being that many clients today do not appreciate they actually have a free Copilot chat. Notice I emphasize the word chat there, everyone. Chat is available to them. So there's an app or a UI inside the browser that they can use for free. And it is the same, if not exceeding the capabilities as the ChatGPT Enterprise and Claude for Work for which they would pay. It exceeds it because it does ground their data on the data that exists in their business today. It exists inside their SharePoint, their Teams, their Outlook experience, their Word, their Excel documents. If you stepped into ChatGPT Enterprise or Claude for Work, you actually need to move your data into their repositories, which creates this disconnect between things that are happening in the business and things you want to do in the AI space. So maybe there's an opportunity to go back to your clients and say, hey, I know there's financial pressure. Cost of fuel is going up, electricity is likely to go up. What about we review what you're doing in terms of your AI strategy? Oh, have you gone and bought ChatGPT Enterprise or Claude for Work? Did you know you can use those same large language models for free with data protection, enterprise data protection? Let me show you the app. And you probably will need to explore with them. Notice I've got a little black label under this icon at the top. Let me drop my laser pointer on. And see here, you've got that little M365 black bar. Make sure they're using that. If they've activated that from the company store, the Microsoft store, or from your Apple store, or your Android store, or the Apple store, you can then have that app for free if they're on Microsoft 365. And it gives them all the capabilities and more of ChatGPT Enterprise or Claude for Work. It also enables you to use a pay-as-you-go agent model grounded on their tenant data. So if you wanted to expose their website to chat experiences by users, there is a consumption component to that. And talk to Andrew and the team about how that consumption works, the subscription that's necessary to be added for the consumption work. So then you're asking, but hang on, you've talked about these bundles, Phil, this Copilot business for $21. What is that all about? Given that, you know, many of the times the guys at OpenAI and the Anthropic people are telling me, oh, I've got to buy it to get what you just said I get. Well, Copilot Business goes so much further than those products in terms of putting capabilities in teams, giving you advanced management, giving you dashboards and insights to measure the adoption your customers have of the technology. You just don't get that with ChatGPT Enterprise or Claude for Work. That whole measurement, adoption, advanced management, you just do not get. But for $21 per user per month, you're definitely getting that with Copilot Business. So maybe take some time to think about this over the long weekend, but there's quite a bit there to explore with your clients to ensure that they're using what they've already paid for in Microsoft 365 Copilot Chat. And there's a little highlights, the little blue buttons, shows you what you get for free in that first column, the little blue buttons. And then the $21 shows what you get as an additional capability when you go with the Copilot Business. Prior to that, there was Microsoft 365 Copilot. I like to put the word enterprise after that. But the shorthanded Microsoft 365 Copilot, yes, that's $30 US. But you will notice between the last column and the second last column, the dots are exactly the same. It's just $9 cheaper because you're a small business. So that's pretty cool to explore with your clients. Does everybody have to have Copilot Business? Look, if I was at Microsoft, I'd say yes, because that's a good revenue opportunity. But in reality, I think you'll find many of the customers inside, many of the users inside your clients' businesses today will be they'll be elated to realize that Copilot Chat is available there to summarize the email, to examine their spreadsheets, to give them insights in those spreadsheets, to create PowerPoint presentations, and so on. Look, this is a little thing. I'm not going to do the demo. I'm conscious of time. But I'd ask you maybe to click on that now and explore after the call, that Copilot scenarios. This is a very powerful tool for you to explore. Now, don't pick all the companies. Just pick one industry and then pick a couple of user types within the industry. It then goes and creates a PowerPoint presentation, which includes the ability to do day-in-the-life scenarios, which I've kind of represented here and here, and the top 10 prompts that are used by those types of people in that type of industry. Now, you could even charge your clients as a service. Now, obviously, this is free to you, but you could use this to create an opportunity to go and meet your client and say, let's explore the opportunities of using Microsoft Copilot in your manufacturing business for a HR user, for a sales representative. And it will create that day in the life scenario that you could then charge them a fee for your time to come and explore that with them. So a nice little resource Microsoft's created. And then as of March 30 for Frontier users, I'm not a Frontier user, but many of the Microsoft partner community, people like Fiona, I think, who's line, maybe Andrew's got this too, they have got the Claude Cowork now in their Copilot experience. I'll say that again. They've got Claude Cowork agentic capabilities inside their Microsoft 365 Copilot world. The ability to run multiple tasks simultaneously, to parallel all the work that's going on in the business, to have a conversation, a large conversation with it, and it runs away and creates calendars, it goes and creates spreadsheets, it communicates with others, it establishes all the guardrail inheritance within that, so that very much workflow model has come to the Copilot family as well. And that's called Copilot Cowork, not dissimilar to what you might have heard of as Claude Cowork coming. These are the security elements. As I mentioned earlier, business premium to me is your good status, and this takes you to the better status, either in the defense area, the cyber threat management, or that compliance and protecting of sensitive information. You'll see in the top right white box and the bottom right white box, the word automatic or automated appears a lot. That is that moving from the tech status that comes in business premium to that automate status, from that good to better model, from that maturity level 1 to maturity level 2. And certainly, absolutely in the era of AI, I would think the combination of business premium on the left with at least the bottom right box, the Purview add-on, which I've mentioned. Anybody remember the percentage promotion price through to June 30? Anybody want to? No prizes. Just the honor of knowing and remembering what that percentage was is enough to make my weekend. Who's going to remember that percentage and put it in the window for everybody to see? I'm putting the Purview suite on top of business premium. Come on.
Oh,
no, it's more than that, Amos.
Taking a guess.
50%, 30, more than 30, 50% off on Purview Suite until June. So that's a big number. That's an opportunity to bring your clients before June 30, 50% on that Purview Suite. Now, this is a really great site, and I'm going to ask each of you to click on that bottom link, that M365 Maps, and then navigate through to seeing where you can see along the row that says business to the right-hand side, Defender and Purview. It's a wonderful graphic that's produced by one of the Microsoft staff in Canberra who works actively with the Australian Signals Directorate, and he kindly, in his own time, produces what's called M365 Maps. And each of the buttons that you'll find in these graphics on that website are hot links. I'm not going to talk to all of these, but the key ones I draw your attention to are DPSM for AI, Data Security Posture Management for AI. With that Purview Suite, you activate it, charge your client money to come and activate it for them, and it will give you insight as to the posture of your client in and around AI security, protection, and governance. You can then charge them money to go and activate things like sensitivity label, information protection, turning on insider risk management, where there's concerns about where there's high turnover of staff, where there is a potential accidental or intentional oversharing or leakage of information from the business. If you're working with government accounts, records management is a critical element to them. It brings you the records management capability, as well as data lifecycle management and automated data loss prevention. By way of example, in the business premium, kind of that good model, data loss prevention says, hey, we've seen somebody send some information they should have. In the better model, which is the Purview Suite, it says we are going to restrict that person from even sending it, and we're going to look for anybody else in the business who may be trying to share that information as well and prevent them from doing it. There's a lot to explore in and around what comes inside that Purview Suite. for Business Premium. But this is a very short video that talks to that. And in this case, it's an auto-labeling for highly confidential document. So here we have, and I've just used my demo tenant to do this, that you can get inside the demo experience environment. It's the Megan Bowen. So I've added the document into Megan's account, which has got confidential information. It's a PDF file where I can copy information, but the information is being flagged in terms of the title of the project and the board, which is the AI 500 board. As soon as I put Project Jupiter in and I type in the AI 500, notice the yellow bar at the top? It shows sensitive information. So I've said keywords, Project Jupiter and AI 500 are sensitive words. It's automatically now applying, or you override, applying a watermark to the document, and the document is updating in the SharePoint site to say it's highly confidential. And then all the appropriate restrictions in terms of sharing that document are also applied within that. So that video is available for you to share and show with your clients. Look, very quickly, I see we've got 10 minutes left. These are individually available, the Defender Suite for Business Premium, with all the goodness there. Any of you worried about Essential 8? Clearly, this little guy here is an important one to you because that helps you meet the required admin requirements of Essential 8 by turning on that Defender Suite for Business Premium. This is my favourite one. Love this one. All around e-discovery for litigation matters, insider risk management, proactively, and information protection and governance, all that automatic sensitivity labelling. Look, this is the same securities technologies the CommBank uses, Suncorp uses, the federal government uses, Australian super users. Many, I think yesterday they indicated 95 out of the top 100 Australian businesses use Microsoft Security now as their default. They pay for it under E5. You are now getting it E5 security, top level security from Microsoft at these very affordable small business prices. And you can also get complete suite for $23.52 Australian, 68% reduction on the per user licensing models associated with that. So in that tradition of good, better, best, good is kind of this business premium space. Better is the addition of this one, or indeed both as a better, if you will. But absolutely best comes when your skills are applied to the implementation of this technology. It's pretty cool. There's no doubt that Microsoft has been recognised for their leadership in security, not just by these Copper and Coal Leadership Compass. I could bring out Gartner and Forrester and MITRE and various others. And Microsoft consistently appears now as the leader, particularly in the era of Gen AI. So please do learn about what Microsoft security technologies are. And at the same time, in that consideration of consolidation of vendors within your clients, maybe examine what they're spending money on today in terms of Google Workspace or Slack or Notion or Canva or Gemini or CrowdStrike. And that is an opportunity to rationalize those costs. Reducing that expenditure in the small business actually creates an opportunity for you to make more money in that business by consolidating back to the Microsoft family, which has got all those capabilities and more, frees up their budget to spend on services with you. Or maybe it's buying new laptops from you. Or maybe it's implementing better Wi-Fi for their environments. Or maybe it's adding some other capabilities and services that you want to make available to them, including things like Copilot Studio. I'm not going to play the video here because I am conscious that we've got about 5 minutes left, but this is a nice little video you can play later on, which shows how you can integrate with MYOB, QuickBooks, HR, all the different CRM systems that might be out there, accounting systems in their business, and bring conversational AI beyond their Word documents and spreadsheets, their Teams, their SharePoint, and bring data out of their systems of record. And in that journey, there's an opportunity on the right-hand side to add factories and more revenue stream to your business. Now, just dwell on that slide for a moment. Business Premium with Copilot Chat. These are the sorts of services that you could be making money out of today, not for free, but for a fee. Going in there and helping them with end user training, implementing Teams phones, seeing that they comply to whether it's, broad, well accepted standards like NIST and CIS, or those Australian unique things like Essential Aid, helping them with risk assessment by looking at the secure score. They don't do this. This is where you've got the skills to go in there very simply, look at the secure score, have a consultative discussion on a regular basis with them to explore how they can harden their environment. They are the number one attacked. Small businesses are the number one attacked entities today on the planet. They really need to harden up their environment, and secure score is wonderful telemetry to help you get that insight. Okay, sell them
I will mention,
Copilot.
Phil,
Yeah,
the other key, and we talked about Essential Aid, you talked about CIS and NIST, but um, this framework and what you're delivering here is obviously ideal for SMB 1001 as well, which a
good.
lot of our partner base is going down this path. And when you look at the controls within SMB 1001, particularly at a gold or platinum level, there's a lot of ticks in the boxes that sit within this slide.
Yep, absolutely. There is, things like this one here. I love it. Protection and labeling, putting
Yes.
in compliance controls, identity management. Well, you've got a level of that with Entra, but are we really leveraging the Entra portal and the M365 admin center to do that controls management of users and actually reviewing that to make sure that people have left or removed? Change management models. I know people who make money purely, there's partners out there who make money purely out of this adoption and management. So if you don't want to do it, there are MVPs out there like Kirsty I could introduce you to. You could bring her in under contract, make money as a margin on top of her services to help with adoption and change management. And then the beauty is this Copilot Studio, which I only briefly had a chance to mention, where you can create these wonderful revenue streams for the business, where you've created a connection into MYOB or QuickBooks or Salesforce or Dynamics or you name the product. They got like 1,400 connectors today. You just point it at the database and suddenly that database is available to queries as well. And that really brings me pretty much to the end of the day. I did ask that you grab your phones very quickly and scan that QR code or click that URL that's in the middle of your screen, that Cloud Accelerator Survey redirect. It is titled a Copilot and Agents Immersion Briefing Survey. Fiona, maybe you can even copy that link into the window so it's easier for people to respond. We really value your feedback. We appreciate the view you've got on what we've shared today. We do want to make it better for you. I know Andrew Clare particularly worked very hard in putting this content together today in partnership with myself and Fiona. So I hope you valued the time we have spent together. With that, I've just got a closing thought. One would be to sign up to a thing called the CSP AI at Work newsletter. I find it an invaluable resource that I look forward to receiving each month in my email box. I read it end to end. I don't use Copilot to summarize it because there is so much good value within it. And the second might be, if you want a shortened version of it, attend my monthly online meeting. I run a meeting, and I know Chad and I saw Don earlier on the call. Some of you on the call are already members of that monthly meeting. I had to restart. I'd been running it 17 years as a Microsoft guy, but one of the first things they took from me was the registration list. I had thousands of people on that list. So I'm rebuilding the list at the moment. So I'm sorry if you are not on the list. I wasn't able to take your name. So simple email to me, philme@catalyst345. I'll put you on the mailing list and you can decide to attend or ignore it from month to month. But I think that they're worthwhile. So thank you very much, everybody. Thank you, Andrew. Thank you, Claire. Thank you, Fiona. And moreover, thank you all of you for taking a few moments of your day, an hour out of your day, to listen to me wax on about AI, intelligence, security, and trust. Have a great Anzac Day.
Oh, you just lit up so many ideas, and I think so many people's minds, and it's very much appreciated. We'll be sharing your online monthly meeting link also in our newsletter because we want to help you rebuild that membership. And thank you to everybody who put all this together today. Most people behind the scenes and everybody who attended. So thank you, everyone. Take care.
Safe long weekend.